Okay, so I've made 2 YouTube videos now. And you know, I'm starting to become famous, and with that has come a lot of criticism. People have their 2 cents, from teachers to friends to, you know, my wide range of fans. There's a lot of criticism. And like, now that I've spent hours on these things, I've slaved at them, someone can just say, oh, duh, I don't like it, it's boring. And it's like, it hurts, but it might be true. Maybe it is too boring. So, now I've got to balance things. How do I, you know, not feel like garbage from all this, you know, negative talking about my content, but how do I make sure I keep improving and listen to the criticism I'm given? It's a tough one. And that's why we're here. How do I take criticism? Okay, so we're talking about criticism and dealing with criticism. We're in our last year of school. We're producing a lot of work that's getting criticized constantly. We're getting tests back. We're getting criticized all the time. And we're kind of like the people in Australian society currently who are most equipped to deal with criticism.
I mean, that's a pretty bold statement.
It is a pretty bold statement. What do you guys think about it?
I don't know about that.
Look, not everyone.
Not everyone, and I don't know, it's very much up to the person.
Being in the position that we are in, we have to be critical of everything we do, because it's everything we do at the moment and everything we submit gets counted to our final mark.
It could link back to the procrastination things. You're criticizing yourself for not doing work, like go do some work.
All of us who are doing major work, how do we feel when we get drafts back?
Look, well, for me, my software teacher doesn't know what's going on, so I can't submit to him. My music teacher, on the other hand, like, I'll show him what I've done, and he'll be like, yeah, this is cool, this is good, this is sort of what you could improve on, and I always take that feedback.
Do you think there are cases where the person who's giving you that feedback doesn't actually matter, and you are like, okay, piss off?
I have a lot of ideas, and 90% of them are absolute garbage, which Wolfie, who I tell most of ideas, can attest to. And it's something I deal with a lot, like just being open to knowing my ideas are bad.
With that, you have to know when you're going to be wrong.
You gotta have that maturity.
You have to have you have to have the maturity. 2, you need to be able to make the judgment when, okay, in this situation, I will most likely be wrong.
Yeah, see, when Louis tells me his ideas, I don't say that's the stupid idea.
Yeah, you've got to write an entire essay, evidence, all of that.
At least when you criticize someone and there's evidence behind it, the person that's being criticized can look at that and go, okay, I see where you're coming from and I understand.
The whole essence of criticism is just an assessment value.
Yep.
What you've done. Yes, in terms of criticizing yourself, it's pretty important to be able to do that.
Look, if you're not critical of yourself, you can, like, you just don't grow.
In a way, other people criticize you, like, it can be negative, it's definitely an attitude thing. Like, if you take everything the wrong way, it's gonna be a miserable person.
You just have to be able to accept criticism. Like, I know people who cannot accept criticism, and it's the most infuriating thing.
Like, when people give feedback, like, an important thing as well is to be appreciative of it. And to, like, be like, thank you for actually investing and caring about me being the best. Like, Joel, what?
It's like, if someone's just being to be like then like it's still assessment of your value. Like, it shows what people think of you.
Well, yeah, when people, you've got to think about what people say when you're at your best, and when they, like, really idolize you. Like, Wolfie idolizes me, and then you've got to think of, like, the people who really despise you. You don't consider both as in, like, I'm gonna completely take these. You've got to, like, listen to everything. But then also, if you listen to everything, it will eat you from your inside out.
Like, Louis, my mum always says I'm beautiful, right? But, like, the girls always say that I'm ugly.
So I got the idea for this concept from this book I'm reading, The Happiness Project. Gretchen Rubin, she basically, one of her parts is all about work, and she talks about how this one reviewer of a book, like, it gave her a bad review. And she decided, for the sake of her own happiness, she would wholeheartedly look at that review, send an email back saying, thank you for making this review, I'm taking that into consideration, please take these into consideration because this is what I think you didn't necessarily get from it. And, like, she felt a massive boost in happiness after she took that criticism, like, took it in her stride.
I mean, wouldn't you want to take feedback from people that you trust, and even if you do trust them, like, you would know that their opinion is most likely true?
And they have your best interests at heart if you respect them. and if you know they do, then there's no point not taking that criticism. We all like to back up against the wall and be like, blah blah blah. How dare you give me a C in my year 8 commerce assessment? They're probably like, they have the best interests at heart.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if like someone's just like, oh yeah, you're bad at math. I mean, it might be true.
But that's horrible criticism. Then there's different types of criticism. That's
I
horrible
wouldn't call that
criticism.
criticism.
I think criticism has to be constructive. So, Gary V is trying to help Charlie deal with hate. So Gary says people idolize him, and then he says people completely deify him. He says what he does to deal with it and what he recommends Charlie do to deal with it is just ignore both.
Now,
I disagree.
Now you've got these influencers just living in their dumb bubble of, oh, I'm perfect. Nobody's opinion matters but mine.
It's just criticism is bullying, because that's just a
Yep.
fallacy. That's just like you're making up. You're saying.
Josh, we can see you.
See you in the mirror. Josh, we can see you. Now, I just see like a little.
To be able to be an influencer and then look at criticism, or just saying, just kill yourself or whatever, and just like random insults. You have to know that that's not real criticism, and you have to learn to not take that stuff to heart.
So again, it's about having that maturity.
Your worth isn't based on what other people think of you.
Wolfie, you are big man. You're big man on campus. You're Mr. Gary V. What do you listen to?
I was Mr. Big Shot over here.
Yep.
I would only consider actual criticism based off of people's assessment of my work. Like in modern history today, we were looking at the turning points of the Pacific War, and we were reading this Quora thread. And one of them was like, Pearl Harbor was the turning point in the Pacific War because you can never beat America in a war. Duh, America beat. And right,
A great point.
but we can't respond to him because we were writing a response to him. We can't respond to him and say, "Oh, your opinion is invalid because you're just an American." You actually have to provide a historical argument as to why Pearl Harbor cannot be the turning point in the Pacific War.
Yeah.
So it's the same sort of thing with Mr. Gary V or whatever his name is. He cannot listen to the people who just criticized him based on who he is. He has to listen to the people who criticize him based on what he's written and what he's done.
Wolfie, I know that it's your thing to just, I'm the best. But is that ignoring criticism?
No, because I'm the best.
We're getting into, like, concluding thoughts territory, boys.
Oh, yes. In conclusion.
Jaden!
Shut
Jaden!
Illegal. You've violated the law.
Every time. Jesus.
You cannot have nice things because of it.
So the actual topic here is how do we deal with criticism? What are our concluding thoughts?
Basically, criticism is something that everybody should take into account. You cannot be naive to say, oh, criticism, I'm not just not going to look at that, because there are some people that will always have a differing opinion to you, especially about the things that you create and you do.
And that's beautiful, isn't it? That helps us so much.
I guess this is
You
also
create a
why we've got
divide.
teams of people working on one project. It creates that
If you have
necessary
55
divide that
yeah.
we need.
You create an echo chamber. It just exacerbates
Yep.
all your issues.
Basically, just like criticism, in my personal opinion, I think you don't take people that you trust
Go.
entirely.
Basically, criticism is only valid if it's actually based on what's done, not who you are. And you need to be able to accept criticism, and you need to have people around you with different opinions. Otherwise, you end up in an echo chamber.
There's also a balance between this and not letting this become and taking criticism in from every single little thing, because you can never please everybody, because that's just like not how.
Yeah, and that's toxic if you try and please everyone. Okay, I'm gonna have to end this. Okay, see you guys. So now that we've talked about criticism, we've got another 6 boxes to add to our collection. We talked about how you need to have that maturity to understand that, hey, we're not above being criticized, and we do the wrong things sometimes, and it's important to take into account what people have to say. You also need to have the maturity to understand not everything people say is gospel, and you have to moderate where your criticism's coming from. Once you've decided what criticism you're actually going to listen to, it's important to actually listen to it, because that's what lets you grow. As Jaden said, that's why we have teams of people. That's why we don't surround ourselves by clones of ourselves, because otherwise otherwise we'll just never change. And personal change is a great thing. It allows us to live a multi-dimensional, multifaceted life. Then we discussed that how to criticize people. Jacob said you can't criticize people on who they are, the things they can't control, but you have to criticize them on what they do, the things they wholeheartedly can control. Then we said that it's important to consider the positive, the negative, consider both sides, but don't consider everything. You've got to take it with a grain of salt. It's the same as the first kind of. You need to realize if you're on the internet and someone comments on your post, this is the worst piece of garbage I've ever seen, you got to consider they probably watched 10 seconds of it. Say someone says this is the best video I've ever seen. Is it? I mean, like, do they say that about everything? Who are they? You've got to consider it all. Criticism isn't just its own thing. It's got this whole thing around it. It's got this whole context around it from where it came from. Then there were two things that I've kind of thought about this week as I've been thinking about criticism. And one of them was that we're not perfect. And we need to be criticized. None of us, especially at 17 years old, the people in my life, we aren't perfect, and we don't know what's right and wrong. We actually don't. We're shaped all the time by the criticism we get. I don't know whether my English is good. I just know the criticism I get. I just know that I was told to do something a certain way. And so it's important when you're criticizing someone that you criticize them properly. You don't half-ass it. Because you're shaping who this person's going to be. Especially if they respect you, you're shaping who they are. And then the sixth and last point, which I think is most important to me, is that when we criticize someone, we're actually showing them that we care. I mean, sometimes when we're getting criticized, we think, oh, they don't care about me, they're being so mean and all that. But like, you're criticizing them because you want the best for them. You're criticizing them because you care about them. And like, why shouldn't you criticize them? And who are you? Who are you to not take that criticism? I know who I am. And I'm not above it. None of us are above criticism. We're all flawed. We're just a bunch of apes chilling on this big fat rock, doing our best.